I stared at my phone screen reading the text message for the third time, hoping the words would somehow rearrange themselves into something that made sense. "We're renovating. You're paying half," my sister Amanda had written, followed by a contractor, quote, "for $94,000. The audacity hit me like a physical slap across the face. She hadn't asked, hadn't discussed it, hadn't even warned me this was coming. She'd simply decided that my hard-earned money belonged to her house, her dream kitchen, her luxury bathroom upgrades. "Mom says it's your turn to contribute," the second message read, as if our mother's word was some kind of divine commandment that automatically opened my wallet. Years of Amanda's entitlement flashed through my mind in an instant. My name is Carl, and I'm 32 years old. For as long as I can remember, my family has operated under one simple rule. Amanda gets what Amanda wants, and everyone else figures out how to make it happen. Growing up in suburban Ohio, I watched my younger sister master the art of manipulation before she could even tie her own shoes. While I spent my teenage years working part-time jobs and saving every penny for college, Amanda perfected her helpless little girl act that never failed to open Dad's wallet or melt Mom's resolve. Our father passed away 5 years ago from a sudden heart attack, leaving behind the modest 3-bedroom ranch house where we'd grown up. In his will, he split the property equally between Amanda and me, probably thinking we'd sell it and divide the proceeds like reasonable adults. Instead, Amanda moved in immediately after the funeral, claiming she needed a place to heal and process her grief. That was 5 years ago, and she's been living there rent-free ever since, treating me like a silent partner who should contribute financially but never have any actual say in decisions. The house itself isn't anything special. Built in 1978, about 1,800 square feet on a quarter-acre lot. Dad had kept it in decent shape, but it definitely showed its age. The kitchen cabinets were original oak that had gone out of style decades ago. The master bathroom still had the same avocado green fixtures from the Carter administration, and the basement was an unfinished concrete cave filled with storage boxes and holiday decorations. But Amanda had grand visions. She'd spent the past year posting Pinterest boards filled with marble countertops, farmhouse sinks, and spa-like bathroom retreats. She'd walk through Home Depot like other people browse art galleries, taking photos of tile displays and light fixtures that cost more than most people's monthly rent. I'd assumed it was all wishful thinking, the kind of fantasy planning that helps people get through mundane daily life. I should have known better. Amanda has been chronically unemployed for the better part of 3 years, cycling through jobs like seasonal allergies. She'd lasted 6 months as a receptionist at a dental office before deciding the environment was too toxic. She tried her hand at real estate for about 5 minutes, until she realized it required actual work and dealing with rejection. Her most recent position was at a boutique clothing store, which she'd quit just 2 months ago because her manager was jealous of her natural sales ability. Meanwhile, I work 60 to 70-hour weeks as a mechanical engineer at a manufacturing plant 2 hours away in Cleveland. I live in a modest 1-bedroom apartment, drive a reliable but unexciting Honda Civic, and spend most of my free time either catching up on work or visiting Mom to make sure she's taking care of herself. I'd managed to save up a decent emergency fund and was even considering buying my own house someday, maybe something with a small yard where I could finally get the dog I'd always wanted. The contractor quote Amanda had forwarded was from Premier Home Solutions, a company that specialized in high-end renovations for wealthy suburban families. The estimate was broken down into 3 main categories: a complete kitchen overhaul for $38,000, including custom cabinets, granite countertops, and professional-grade appliances; a master bathroom transformation for $22,000 with heated floors, a rainfall shower and a jetted tub; and a finished basement renovation for $34,000, complete with a wet bar home theater setup and guest bedroom. Every single improvement would benefit only Amanda. The kitchen would become her personal cooking playground, despite the fact that she currently survived on takeout and microwave meals. The master bathroom would turn into her private spa retreat, replacing the perfectly functional shower and bathtub that had served our family for decades. And the basement renovation would create additional living space that she could use however she pleased while I continued paying rent for my tiny apartment in Cleveland. But the real kicker came when I scrolled through the attached documents more carefully. At the bottom of the estimate in small print, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The contract had already been signed. Not by both property owners, as would be legally required for such a major renovation, but by Amanda alone. And somehow, impossibly, there was a second signature on the document that looked suspiciously like my own handwriting. I grabbed my laptop and logged into my email account, searching through months of messages for any communication from Premier Home Solutions. Nothing. I checked my regular mail pile looking for any documents or contracts that might have been sent to my apartment. Nothing there either. But as I stared at that signature, a terrible realization began to form. Amanda had been collecting my mail from the family house for years, claiming she was helping out by bringing it to family gatherings or dropping it off at my apartment. How many important documents had she intercepted over the years? How many opportunities had she had to practice copying my signature? The phone rang, interrupting my growing panic. Mom's number appeared on the screen, and I knew Amanda had already started working her manipulation magic. "Carl, honey, I just got off the phone with your sister." Mom began, her voice carrying that particular tone of disappointment that had been perfected during my childhood. She told me about the renovation plans, and I think it's wonderful that she's finally taking some initiative to improve the house. Mom, she wants me to pay $47,000 for renovations to her house. I said, trying to keep my voice level and reasonable. I wasn't consulted about this decision. I don't live there, and I can't afford that kind of expense. Now, Carl, that house belongs to both of you, and Amanda has been taking such good care of it all these years. Don't you think it's time you contributed something meaningful to the family? Your father would have wanted you two to work together on something like this. The guilt trip was predictable, but no less effective. Mom had always excused Amanda's behavior as youthful exuberance or creative thinking, while holding me to a much higher standard of responsibility and maturity. If Amanda failed to pay a bill, it was because she was going through a hard time. If I questioned her decisions, it was because I was being selfish and unsupportive. I contribute plenty to this family, Mom. I drive down there every other weekend to check on you. I helped pay for Amanda's car repairs last year, and I've never asked for any rent or utilities from the house that I technically half own. But this is different, honey. This is about investing in the family property, about making it a place where future generations can create memories. Amanda has such beautiful ideas for how to make the house special again. I ended the call feeling frustrated and emotionally drained, which had been the intended effect. Amanda had already poisoned the well, framing my reasonable objections as selfish greed while positioning herself as the visionary family member with Amanda's best interests at heart. My firm refusal to pay for Amanda's fantasy renovation triggered a response that would have impressed professional warfare strategists. Within 24 hours of my no text, she had launched a comprehensive campaign designed to isolate me from our entire extended family and paint me as the villain in her tragic story of sibling abandonment. It started with the phone calls. Mom called 3 times on Tuesday, each conversation more emotionally manipulative than the last. The first call was disappointment. "I really thought you'd come around once you had time to think about it, Carl." The second was guilt. "Your sister is so hurt that you won't support her when she's finally trying to make something of herself." The third was pure emotional blackmail. "I don't have many years left, and I'd hoped to see my children working together instead of fighting over money." But Amanda was just getting started. She called our Aunt Susan in Michigan, sobbing about how her selfish brother was destroying the family by refusing to honor their father's memory through home improvements. She reached out to our cousin Mark in Phoenix, explaining through tears how I was abandoning family in their time of need and making their elderly mother choose sides. She even contacted my high school friends on Facebook, sharing carefully edited versions of our text exchange that made me look like a heartless miser refusing to help his struggling sister. The social media campaign was particularly vicious. Amanda posted a series of Instagram stories that told her version of events with the skill of a seasoned publicist. The first post showed a photo of our father in the house's living room, captioned, "Dad always believed in investing in family and creating a legacy for future generations." The second featured a screenshot of Pinterest boards filled with home renovation inspiration with text overlay reading, "Sometimes your dreams have to wait because not everyone believes in your vision." The third was a tearful selfie accompanied by a paragraph about learning who your real family is when you need support the most. Each post received dozens of sympathetic comments from friends and extended family members who had no idea what was actually happening. "Stay strong, Amanda, Mambi. Family should always come first. Some people just don't understand what really matters in life." The comment section became a digital lynch mob with people I'd known for years suddenly questioning my character based on Amanda's carefully crafted narrative. But the Christmas ultimatum voice note was when Amanda finally revealed her true nature. I listened to the 3-minute recording in my car during lunch break, watching my hands shake as her voice escalated from disappointed sister to screaming banshee. You know what, Carl Fine? Fine. If you're going to be this selfish and horrible, then don't expect an invite to Christmas this year. I'm hosting the entire family, and I'm not going to let your negative attitude ruin everyone else's holiday. Maybe spending Christmas alone will help you remember what actually matters in life, family. But apparently, money is more important to you than the people who love you. The voice note continued with increasingly unhinged accusations. I was apparently jealous of her success and happiness, bitter about her close relationship with Mom, and threatened by her independence and creativity. She accused me of stealing opportunities from her throughout our childhood, of manipulating Dad against her before he died, and of trying to control the family finances like some kind of dictator. As I listened to this verbal assault, something clicked into place. This wasn't really about money or home renovations. This was about control manipulation and Amanda's desperate need to maintain her position as the family's perpetual victim who deserved constant support and accommodation. The renovation project was just the latest scheme in a lifelong pattern of entitlement and emotional manipulation. I decided to do some investigating of my own. That evening, I drove to the county courthouse and requested copies of all public records related to our family property. What I discovered made my stomach turn. Over the past 3 years, Amanda had taken out 4 separate loans using the house as collateral. The first was a $15,000 personal loan from a credit union supposedly for emergency home repairs. The second was a $20,000 line of credit from a national bank listed as property improvements. The third was a $12,000 cash advance from a payday lending company with interest rates that bordered on predatory. The fourth was a $30,000 refinance through a mortgage broker ostensibly to consolidate debt and improve cash flow. None of these loans had required my signature as co-owner because Amanda had listed herself as the sole occupant and primary caretaker of the property. She'd technically committed fraud, but proving it would require expensive legal action that might not even be successful. The total debt secured against our family home was now $77,000, not including the original mortgage balance that Dad had nearly paid off before his death. Amanda had essentially stolen the equity that represented my inheritance, using it to fund 3 years of unemployment and luxury lifestyle choices. But there was more. I spent the next evening combing through social media posts, looking for clues about how Amanda had been spending this borrowed money. Her Instagram account told the story of someone living far beyond any reasonable means for an unemployed person. Dinner photos from expensive restaurants 2 or 3 times per week, shopping hauls from high-end clothing stores, and cosmetics boutiques. Weekend trips to Nashville, Chicago, and Miami with groups of friends who clearly had more money than sense. Just last month, she'd posted photos from a spa weekend in Napa Valley that must have cost $3,000, followed immediately by a shopping spree in San Francisco that included handbags worth more than most people's monthly rent. She'd been living like a trust fund baby, while systematically draining the equity from our father's house and positioning herself as the struggling victim who needed family support. The Christmas disinvitation should have hurt more than it did. Instead, I felt relieved. I wouldn't have to spend the holiday walking on eggshells watching Amanda perform her helpless little girl act, while our relatives praised her for taking such good care of the family home. I wouldn't have to bite my tongue while she accepted sympathy and financial support from people who had no idea she'd been living a completely fraudulent lifestyle. I also realized Amanda had made a tactical error. By cutting me out of Christmas, she'd given me the perfect opportunity to document whatever lies she told the family about my absence. People would want to know why I wasn't there, and Amanda would have to either admit she disinvited me over money or create an elaborate fiction that I could later disprove. On December 20th, just 4 days before Christmas, Amanda posted the formal announcement, "This year's Christmas celebration will be extra special, hosting the whole family at my place for the first time since Dad passed. Can't wait to share love, laughter, and gratitude with the people who truly matter." Some people choose money over family, but we choose each other every single time. The post included photos of expensive holiday decorations throughout the house, professional-looking Christmas arrangements, and what appeared to be catered food preparation. Everything in those photos represented money that Amanda didn't have borrowed against property that was half mine spent to maintain an illusion of success and stability that was completely false. I screenshotted every single post, saved every comment, and began documenting a timeline of Amanda's financial deception. If she wanted to play games with family relationships and public reputation, I was going to make sure I had all the facts ready when the truth inevitably came out. My growing suspicion about Amanda's financial shenanigans led me to hire Jason Torres, a private investigator who specialized in fraud cases and asset discovery. Jason came highly recommended from a colleague whose ex-wife had hidden assets during their divorce proceedings, and his rates were reasonable for what promised to be a straightforward investigation. I need to know exactly how my sister has been using our jointly owned property as collateral, and whether she's been engaging in any fraudulent activity. I explained during our initial meeting at a coffee shop near my office. Jason was a former police detective, in his early 50s with graying hair and the kind of calm, methodical demeanor that inspired confidence. Property fraud between family members is unfortunately more common than people realize, he told me, pulling out a tablet to take notes. Often the fraudulent party assumes the victim won't pursue legal action because of family relationships. They use emotional manipulation and guilt to prevent accountability. I also retained Sandra Kim, a forensic accountant, who specialized in tracing hidden assets and uncovering financial irregularities. Sandra had worked on several high-profile embezzlement cases and had a reputation for finding money that people thought they'd hidden successfully. Based on what you've described, your sister has likely been engaged in systematic equity theft, Sandra explained during our consultation. We'll need to trace every loan, every credit application, and every financial transaction connected to the property. We'll also want to look into her personal spending patterns to see where the borrowed money actually went. The investigation took 3 weeks and cost me $2,000, but the results were absolutely devastating. Jason's background research revealed that Amanda had been running what amounted to a small-scale financial fraud operation for over 3 years. The property loans I'd already discovered were just the tip of the iceberg. Sandra's forensic analysis uncovered 6 additional credit cards that had been opened using the family home as proof of assets and income stability. Amanda had apparently claimed to be self-employed in property management, listing herself as earning $60,000 annually through residential property consulting. Each credit card had been maxed out within months of approval, with purchases ranging from luxury clothing and jewelry to expensive electronics and vacation packages. But the most shocking discovery involved rental income that Amanda had been collecting without my knowledge. Jason's investigation revealed that she'd been renting out the basement and garage to college students from the nearby community college, collecting $800 per month in cash payments for the past 2 years. She'd created separate entrances to maintain the illusion that she lived alone while secretly profiting from property that was half mine. The rental arrangement explained why Amanda's social media posts never showed the basement or garage areas, and why she'd been so insistent on the basement renovation. She needed to evict her current tenants and upgrade the space to justify higher rent charges, but she required my money to fund the improvements that would increase her illegal rental income. Jason also discovered that Amanda had been intercepting mail addressed to me at the family property for over 4 years. She'd apparently established a pattern of collecting mail during the day, then sorting through it to determine what she wanted me to see and what she preferred to handle herself. Important documents from the county assessor, the mortgage company, and various financial institutions had been diverted to her personal attention, giving her opportunities to forge signatures and make financial decisions without my knowledge or consent. The forged signature on the renovation contract was just the most recent example of a systematic pattern of identity theft. Sandra's analysis revealed at least 8 other documents bearing suspiciously similar signatures, including loan applications, insurance claims, and even a property tax appeal that had reduced our annual tax burden while increasing Amanda's profit margin on the illegal rental income. But perhaps the most infuriating discovery was Amanda's actual financial situation. Despite years of borrowing money and collecting rental income, she was now facing serious financial consequences that she'd been desperately trying to hide from the family. The payday loan was in default with interest charges that had ballooned the balance to nearly $18,000. 2 of the credit cards were being pursued by collection agencies, and the bank that had issued the largest property loan was beginning foreclosure proceedings. Amanda's unemployment wasn't a temporary setback or bad luck. It was a deliberate lifestyle choice that she'd been funding through systematic fraud and deception. She'd been living like a wealthy person while accumulating massive debts that were secured against property that belonged to both of us. When the foreclosure proceedings concluded, I would lose my inheritance to pay for Amanda's fraudulent lifestyle choices. The $94,000 renovation wasn't a home improvement project. It was a desperate attempt to increase the property value enough to refinance all of her existing debts and start the cycle over again. She needed my $47,000 not to pay contractors, but to satisfy creditors who were threatening legal action. The renovation was Amanda's last chance to maintain her house of cards before everything came crashing down. Sandra's investigation also revealed the source of Amanda's Christmas celebration funding. Just 2 weeks before the holiday, she'd taken a cash advance against one of her few remaining credit cards, withdrawing $4,000 to pay for decorations, catered food, and gifts for family members. She was literally borrowing money to maintain the appearance of financial stability while her entire fraudulent operation was collapsing. But Jason uncovered one more crucial detail that would change everything. During his surveillance of the property, he'd noticed an unusual amount of activity on December 23rd, the day before Christmas Eve. Multiple cars with out-of-state license plates had visited the house, staying for 30 to 45-minute periods. When he ran the plate numbers, he discovered they belonged to real estate investors and property developers from Columbus and Cincinnati. Amanda wasn't just throwing a Christmas party to exclude me and manipulate the family. She was secretly showing the house to potential buyers, planning to sell the property without my knowledge or consent. The holiday gathering was cover for conducting real estate business, and the fancy decorations and catered food were staging elements designed to impress prospective purchasers. Everything suddenly made sense. Amanda's timeline was collapsing, and she needed to sell the house quickly to avoid foreclosure and criminal fraud charges. She'd planned to exclude me from Christmas, complete the sale during the holiday period, when I'd be less likely to discover what was happening, then present me with a fait accompli and a check for my portion of the proceeds minus all her fraudulent debts. The family Christmas celebration was actually a real estate showing disguised as a holiday party, and Amanda was planning to steal my inheritance to cover her own financial crimes. Christmas Eve arrived with the kind of bitter December cold that made Cleveland feel like the edge of the world. I spent the morning at my apartment watching snow accumulate on my balcony, while Amanda's Instagram account exploded with carefully orchestrated holiday content designed to showcase her perfect family gathering and my conspicuous absence. The first post appeared at 9:30 in the morning, a photo of an elaborately decorated dining room table with professional-looking place settings, expensive Christmas centerpieces, and what appeared to be catered food arrangements. Christmas magic is happening at the family house. So grateful for everyone who understands what really matters: love, togetherness, and creating beautiful memories with the people who choose to be here. The passive-aggressive dig was subtle enough to maintain plausible deniability while making it clear that my absence was a personal choice rather than her decision to exclude me. The comments poured in from extended family members expressing excitement about the gathering and praising Amanda for keeping family traditions alive. By noon, she'd posted a series of Instagram stories showing various relatives arriving at the house, each carrying gifts and wearing forced smiles for Amanda's documenting efforts. I recognized my Aunt Susan from Michigan, Uncle Dave and his wife Carol from Toledo, and several cousins I hadn't seen since Dad's funeral. Everyone appeared dressed up and ready for an afternoon of holiday celebration, completely unaware that they were serving as unwitting props in Amanda's real estate marketing scheme. But the most painful post came at 1:15, featuring a photo that made my stomach clench with unexpected emotion. Amanda had invited Sarah Martinez, my ex-girlfriend from college, positioning her prominently in a group photo of family and chosen family celebrating love and loyalty. Sarah and I had dated for 3 years and broken up amicably when I took my engineering job in Cleveland and she accepted a teaching position in Columbus. We'd maintained friendly contact through social media, but I hadn't seen her in person for over 2 years. Amanda knew exactly what she was doing by inviting Sarah. She was demonstrating that even my ex-girlfriend deserved a place at the family table more than I did, while also creating the visual impression that Sarah was somehow replacing me in family dynamics. The photo showed Sarah laughing and engaging warmly with Mom and other relatives, looking comfortable and welcome in my childhood home, while I spent Christmas Eve alone in my apartment. The comments on that particular post were especially brutal. Sarah fits right in with the family. Some people appreciate what they have and some people don't. Love seeing genuine connections with people who actually care about each other. But as I scrolled through Amanda's posts more carefully, I began noticing details that confirmed Jason's surveillance discoveries. In the background of several photos, I could see unfamiliar middle-aged couples dressed more formally than typical family gathering attire. They appeared to be examining the house itself rather than participating in holiday conversations, checking out the kitchen improvements Amanda had been planning, measuring spaces with their eyes, and taking their own discreet photos. One Instagram story inadvertently captured a man in a business suit examining the basement entrance while family members gathered around the Christmas tree in the living room. Another showed a woman in expensive real estate attire taking notes on her phone while standing near the renovated areas Amanda had been showcasing online. Most tellingly, several of the family celebration posts featured strategic camera angles that showcased specific areas of the house rather than focusing on people or holiday activities. Amanda was essentially conducting a real estate photo shoot disguised as family documentation, creating marketing materials that demonstrated the property's potential while using our relatives as staging elements to create warmth and livability. At 2:30, I noticed my Honda Civic in the background of one of Amanda's Instagram stories. She'd borrowed my car 6 weeks ago, claiming she needed reliable transportation for a series of job interviews. When I'd asked for its return, she'd delayed and made excuses saying she was still using it for important meetings and would get it back to me soon. Now I realize those meetings were probably consultations with real estate agents, creditors, and potential buyers, all conducted using my vehicle while she planned to steal my inheritance. The car represented the perfect opportunity for my counterattack. Amanda had broadcast its location to hundreds of social media followers, demonstrating that she was using my property without permission while simultaneously excluding me from family gatherings. Her own posts would serve as evidence of both her theft and her vindictive behavior. I called Best Choice Towing, a company I'd used once before, when someone had blocked my apartment parking space. I need to recover my vehicle from someone who's been using it without permission, I explained to the dispatcher. I have documentation proving ownership, and I know exactly where it's located. No problem, sir. We can have a truck there within 30 minutes. You'll need to provide proof of ownership and pay the towing fee, but we handle these situations all the time. I gathered my car registration insurance documentation and spare key, then drove my rental car to a position where I could monitor Amanda's street without being obvious. Jason had taught me the importance of documentation, so I set up my phone to record everything that was about to unfold. At exactly 3:45, I posted my comment on Amanda's most recent Instagram story, "Nice PS, the car in your driveway, mine. Tow truck's on the way." Then I sat back and waited for the show to begin. The tow truck arrived at exactly 3:52, rumbling down Amanda's quiet suburban street like a mechanical harbinger of justice. I watched from my position 2 blocks away as the driver, a stocky man in coveralls and a reflective safety vest, stepped out and began examining my Honda Civic. He checked the license plate against his paperwork, then started positioning the truck for optimal access to my car. Amanda's house exploded into chaos within minutes. Through my phone's camera, I could see family members rushing to the front windows, pointing at the tow truck and gesturing frantically. Someone inside must have spotted my Instagram comment because suddenly the front door burst open and Amanda came running outside in her expensive Christmas dress and high-heeled shoes, moving faster than I'd seen her move in years. "Wait, wait! You can't tow that car?" she screamed at the driver, who calmly continued preparing his equipment. "That's my brother's car, and he said I could use it." The tow truck driver glanced up from his work. "Ma'am, I have a work order from the vehicle owner requesting recovery of his property. If you have documentation showing you're authorized to use this vehicle, I'll need to see it now." Amanda's voice escalated to a pitch that probably disturbed dogs 3 blocks away. "This is ridiculous. He's just being spiteful because we had a family disagreement. This is Christmas Eve, for crying out loud." By now, the entire Christmas gathering had spilled onto the front lawn. Mom appeared in the doorway wearing her best holiday dress, looking confused and embarrassed. Aunt Susan and Uncle Dave stood on the porch, obviously uncomfortable with the public scene unfolding before their eyes. Several cousins had their phones out recording Amanda's meltdown for their own social media documentation. But most importantly, the well-dressed strangers I'd spotted in Amanda's photos were also watching from the edge of the property. A middle-aged couple in business attire stood near a black Lexus SUV, clearly real estate professionals who had come to view the house and found themselves witnessing a family crisis instead. A second potential buyer, a woman in her 50s wearing an expensive wool coat, was already walking back toward her Mercedes, obviously uncomfortable with the domestic drama. This is absolutely humiliating. I heard one of the real estate people say to her companion, "We should come back another time when they've resolved their family issues." Amanda noticed the potential buyers leaving, and her panic intensified. "No, wait, this has nothing to do with the house. My brother is just having some kind of mental breakdown over family disagreements. The property is still available." The tow truck driver had finished securing my car and was preparing to drive away. Amanda ran after the truck in her high heels, actually grabbing onto the side panel and screaming about property rights and family emergencies. The driver stopped and rolled down his window. "Ma'am, if you don't step away from the vehicle, I'm going to have to call the police. This is a legal recovery of stolen property, and interfering with a tow truck operator is a criminal offense in this state." Stolen property. Stolen. That car belongs to my selfish, vindictive brother who's trying to destroy Christmas because he doesn't want to help family. The driver remained completely professional. According to my paperwork, the vehicle owner reported it missing after multiple attempts to recover it through personal communication. If you have a legal dispute about the car, you'll need to resolve that through the courts or with the owner directly. As my Honda disappeared down the street on the back of the tow truck, Amanda's Christmas gathering completely disintegrated. The remaining potential buyers left immediately clearly uncomfortable with the property dispute they'd witnessed. Extended family members began making awkward excuses about needing to get home before dark or having other holiday commitments to attend. Mom tried to salvage the situation by inviting everyone back inside for dessert and coffee, but the mood had been irreparably damaged. Through the front windows, I could see people gathering their coats and gifts, obviously eager to escape the embarrassing scene. But Amanda wasn't finished. She pulled out her phone and called me directly, her voice, a combination of rage and desperation that probably registered on seismic equipment. "Carl, what the hell do you think you're doing? You just humiliated me in front of the entire family. On Christmas Eve. How could you be this vindictive and cruel? I took back my car that you've been using without permission for 6 weeks," I replied calmly. "The same car you've been driving to real estate appointments while planning to sell our house without my consent." There was a moment of stunned silence. "What are you talking about? I'm not selling anything." "Amanda, I know about the foreclosure proceedings. I know about all the loans you've taken against the house. I know about the basement tenants you've been hiding. I know about the forged signatures on financial documents. And I know that today's Christmas gathering was actually a cover story for showing the house to potential buyers." Another silence longer this time. When Amanda spoke again, her voice had changed from angry to calculating. "I don't know what lies people have been telling you, but you're completely wrong about everything. I've been taking care of our family property for 5 years, while you've contributed nothing. If there are financial issues, it's because I've been struggling to maintain a house that you should be helping support. The basement rental income alone has been $800 per month for 2 years, Amanda. That's over $19,000 you've collected from property that's half mine, not including all the equity you've stolen through fraudulent loan applications." This time the silence stretched long enough that I thought she might have hung up. When she finally responded, her tone had shifted again, becoming wheedling and manipulative. "Carl, I think you're confused about some things, and maybe we should sit down after the holidays and clear up any misunderstandings. But right now you've ruined Christmas for our entire family. Mom is crying, everyone's upset, and you've made yourself look like a complete monster over a car that I would have returned to you anyway. I'm sure you would have returned it right after you finished selling the house and disappeared with my half of the proceeds." The line went dead. I drove to the towing company lot to retrieve my car, feeling simultaneously vindicated and emotionally drained. The tow truck driver, whose name tag read Miguel, was finishing paperwork when I arrived. "Family disputes are the worst," he said, shaking his head. "I've been doing this job for 12 years, and I've seen every kind of crazy you can imagine. But when family members start stealing from each other, it gets really ugly really fast." As I was signing the release forms, Miguel mentioned something that stopped me cold. You know, I remember that address from a few months ago. Same lady called us to tow a van that belonged to some contractors who were working on her house. She claimed they'd abandoned it in her driveway, but when we got there, the contractors were still working. They said she was trying to avoid paying them for work they'd already completed. The final piece of Amanda's pattern fell into place. She'd been using towing companies as weapons against anyone who threatened her fraudulent lifestyle. Contractors, creditors, probably even former tenants who'd asked too many questions about the legality of her basement rental operation. I was just the latest victim in a long line of people Amanda had tried to manipulate and cheat. The week between Christmas and New Year's brought a cascade of revelations that transformed my understanding of Amanda's true nature and the full scope of her financial crimes. What had started as a dispute over home renovation costs had evolved into something that could potentially land my sister in federal prison. On December 28th, I received a priority mail delivery containing the complete results of Sandra Kim's forensic accounting investigation. The 18-page report detailed financial irregularities that went far beyond simple property fraud. Amanda had been operating what the report described as a systematic scheme of identity theft, mail fraud, and asset manipulation spanning multiple years and involving numerous financial institutions. The basement rental operation alone constituted several serious crimes. Amanda had been collecting cash payments from college students while reporting no rental income to the Internal Revenue Service, evading both federal and state tax obligations. She'd also been requiring tenants to pay additional fees for utilities, parking, and property maintenance that were never actually provided, essentially running a small-scale extortion operation targeting vulnerable young adults who needed affordable housing. But the mail interception was perhaps the most serious violation. Sandra's investigation had uncovered evidence that Amanda had been systematically diverting my correspondence for over 4 years, not just to hide her own financial activities, but to actively impersonate me in communications with creditors, government agencies, and service providers. She'd apparently used intercepted mail to gather personal information needed for identity theft, then destroyed the evidence to cover her tracks. The forensic analysis revealed at least 14 separate instances where Amanda had forged my signature on documents ranging from property tax appeals to insurance claims to loan applications. In several cases, she'd actually increased coverage or benefits by claiming that both property owners lived in the house full-time, then pocketed the additional payments while leaving me legally liable for any claims or obligations. Most disturbing of all, Amanda had been intercepting and responding to official correspondence from the county assessor, the mortgage company, and even the Social Security Administration. She'd been filing fraudulent tax returns claiming me as a dependent while simultaneously using my identity to secure credit and loans that I knew nothing about. The report estimated that her various schemes had generated over $200,000 in illegal income and financial benefits over the past 4 years. Jason Torres called me on December 29th with additional information that made my blood run cold. His investigation had uncovered connections between Amanda and a network of other individuals engaged in similar property fraud schemes. Apparently, she'd been working with a mortgage broker named Derek Patterson, who specialized in helping clients secure loans using questionable documentation and inflated property values. Your sister wasn't operating alone, Jason explained during our phone conversation. Patterson has been running what amounts to a loan fraud mill, helping people extract equity from inherited properties through fake renovations, forged signatures, and falsified income documentation. The FBI has been investigating this network for over a year, and your sister's activities fit the pattern perfectly. Patterson's operation involved recruiting people who had inherited property but weren't actively managing it, then helping them create elaborate schemes to extract maximum equity through fraudulent means. Amanda had apparently been referred to Patterson through connections she'd made during her brief real estate career, and he'd provided her with templates, documentation, and even coaching on how to forge signatures and manipulate financial records. The $94,000 renovation contract wasn't just an attempt to get my money, it was part of a larger scheme to inflate the property value artificially, then secure additional loans based on the supposed improvements. Patterson's company would have done minimal actual work while documenting extensive renovations, creating fraudulent before and after photos, and generating fake receipts that could be used to justify increased property values and additional borrowing capacity. But Jason's investigation had also revealed something that made my situation even more precarious. The FBI had been conducting surveillance on Derek Patterson's operation for several months, and they had detailed records of Amanda's communications with his company. My name appeared in multiple documents as a co-conspirator in the renovation fraud scheme, based entirely on the forged signatures and fraudulent communications Amanda had been creating. The good news is that your quick action in refusing to participate and your decision to hire investigators probably saved you from serious criminal liability, Jason told me. The bad news is that you're going to need an attorney immediately because the federal investigation is moving forward rapidly and you'll likely be contacted by law enforcement within the next few weeks. I retained Barbara Chen, a criminal defense attorney who specialized in financial fraud cases and had experience representing victims of identity theft. Barbara's preliminary review of my documentation confirmed that I was likely to be treated as a victim rather than a conspirator, but she warned me that federal investigations could be unpredictable and time-consuming. Your sister has been using your identity so extensively that it's going to take significant effort to untangle your finances from hers, Barbara explained during our consultation. The fact that you proactively hired investigators and documented her fraudulent activities works strongly in your favor, but you should be prepared for a lengthy legal process. Meanwhile, Amanda's Christmas Eve humiliation had triggered a complete breakdown of her carefully constructed social media persona. Her Instagram account, which had previously showcased a lifestyle of luxury and leisure, now featured increasingly desperate posts about family betrayal and false accusations that made her sound paranoid and unstable. On December 30th, she posted a rambling 3,000-word Facebook essay titled "When Family Chooses Money Over Love" that detailed her version of our conflict, while inadvertently confessing to several of the financial irregularities I'd discovered. She claimed that any money she'd borrowed against the house was necessary for maintenance and improvements that Carl should have been helping with all along. She admitted to collecting rental income but characterized it as house-sitting fees from friends who occasionally stayed over. She acknowledged intercepting my mail but described it as helping my busy brother manage his correspondence while he focused on his career. The post received dozens of comments from friends and relatives, but the tone was notably different from her earlier social media support. People were asking pointed questions about the specifics of our property arrangements, the legality of her rental activities, and the appropriateness of making financial decisions without consulting a co-owner. Several comments came from family members who had attended the Christmas gathering and were clearly troubled by what they'd witnessed. Mom called me on New Year's Eve, her voice shaky and uncertain in a way I'd never heard before. "Carl, I need to ask you about some things Amanda told me, and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Of course, Mom. What do you want to know?" "Did Amanda really forge your signature on legal documents? Has she been stealing money from you? Are the police going to arrest her?" I spent 45 minutes walking Mom through the evidence I'd gathered, explaining Amanda's schemes in terms that wouldn't completely destroy her image of her daughter, while making it clear that serious crimes had been committed. By the end of the conversation, Mom was crying. "I don't understand how this happened," she said through her tears. "I thought Amanda was finally getting her life together. I thought she was taking responsibility for the family property. How did I miss all of this?" "Amanda is very good at manipulation and deception, Mom. She's had years of practice, and she specifically targeted people who love her and want to see the best in her. This isn't your fault. But I could hear in Mom's voice that she was beginning to understand the full scope of Amanda's betrayal, not just against me, but against the entire family. The golden child who could do no wrong had been systematically lying to and stealing from everyone who cared about her. The next phase of this nightmare was about to begin. 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of my new house, watching morning sunlight stream through windows that overlooked a small but well-maintained backyard where my adopted golden retriever, Murphy, was investigating interesting smells near the fence line. The three-bedroom ranch in a quiet suburb of Cleveland had cost me $275,000, financed through conventional means with my own credit and a down payment that came from the sale of my childhood home. Amanda had agreed to plead guilty to federal charges of mail fraud, identity theft, and tax evasion in exchange for a sentence of 18 months probation, 600 hours of community service, and full restitution of the money she'd stolen. The plea agreement allowed her to avoid federal prison, but it required her to pay back over $180,000 in fraudulent, loan-stolen rental income and tax penalties. The house had ultimately sold for $412,000 after Amanda was forced to evict her basement tenants and complete minimal repairs to bring the property up to legal standards for sale. After paying off all the legitimate debts, resolving the fraudulent loans, and covering legal expenses, I received enough money to buy my own home outright and still have a substantial emergency fund remaining. Amanda now lived in a modest one-bedroom apartment across town, working 40 hours a week as a cashier at a large retail store and attending mandatory financial counseling sessions every Saturday morning. Her Instagram account had been deleted, her luxury possessions had been sold to pay restitution, and she'd traded her designer clothing for the uniform polo shirts and khakis required by her employer. The most surprising development had been Amanda's gradual transformation from entitled manipulator to someone who seemed genuinely committed to understanding and changing her behavior. The community service requirement had placed her in a program that helped low-income families with basic home repairs, teaching her actual construction skills while forcing her to confront the reality of people who struggled financially through no fault of their own. 3 months after the legal proceedings concluded, Amanda had called me to apologize. Not the manipulative excuse-filled apology I'd expected, but a genuine acknowledgement of the pain she'd caused and the trust she'd destroyed. "I know saying sorry doesn't fix anything," she'd said during that difficult phone conversation. "I know I stole from you, lied to you, and tried to destroy your relationships with our family. I know I spent years treating you like an ATM while playing the victim whenever you didn't give me what I wanted." I'd listened without interrupting, hearing something in her voice that I'd never heard before. Actual remorse rather than self-pity. The counseling sessions have helped me understand that I was addicted to living above my means and using other people to fund a lifestyle I hadn't earned. She'd continued. "I convinced myself that I deserved those things because life had been unfair to me, but really, I was just stealing from people who loved me because I thought I could get away with it." The conversation had lasted over an hour, covering years of resentment, manipulation, and family dysfunction that had culminated in criminal fraud charges. Amanda had acknowledged that her problems began long before Dad's death, rooted in childhood patterns, where she'd learned to use emotional manipulation to avoid consequences and get what she wanted. "I don't expect you to forgive me or trust me again," she'd said near the end of the call. "I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what I did, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to become the kind of person who deserves to be part of a family." Our relationship remained distant but respectful. I occasionally received text messages updating me on her progress in the financial counseling program or sharing small accomplishments from her retail job. She'd apparently been promoted to assistant manager after demonstrating reliability and strong work ethic qualities that had been completely absent during her years of fraudulent living. Mom had struggled with depression and anxiety following the revelations about Amanda's criminal activities. but she'd eventually begun attending her own therapy sessions to process the guilt and confusion of learning that her favorite child had been systematically deceiving everyone for years. She'd apologized to me repeatedly for enabling Amanda's behavior and for pressuring me to support schemes that had been fundamentally fraudulent. I wanted so badly to believe that Amanda was finally taking responsibility for her life, Mom had explained during one of our weekly phone calls. I ignored obvious warning signs because it was easier than facing the truth about her character. I failed both of you by not seeing what was really happening. The extended family had gradually come to understand that Amanda's Christmas Eve meltdown had been the culmination of years of financial fraud rather than a simple sibling disagreement over money. Most relatives had been horrified to learn that they'd been unwittingly participating in social media content designed to facilitate real estate fraud, and several had provided statements to federal investigators documenting Amanda's deceptive behavior at family gatherings. Derek Patterson, the mortgage broker who had been coaching Amanda's fraudulent activities, received a 5-year federal prison sentence and was ordered to pay over $2 million in restitution to various victims. His loan fraud network had ultimately involved over 40 properties and more than $300,000 in fraudulent lending, making Amanda's case just one example of a much larger criminal enterprise. The most valuable lesson I'd learned was that setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's essential for healthy relationships and personal integrity. For years, I'd enabled Amanda's destructive behavior by providing financial assistance and emotional support without requiring accountability or change. My refusal to pay for her renovation fantasy had actually been the kindest thing I could have done both for myself and ultimately for her. Family relationships aren't about unconditional financial support or accepting abuse in the name of loyalty. True family means holding each other accountable, supporting genuine growth and positive change, and refusing to participate in destructive patterns that harm everyone involved. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is refuse to enable their worst impulses and force them to face the consequences of their choices. As I watched Murphy chase a squirrel across the yard, I realized that my life had become exactly what I'd always wanted: peaceful, authentic, and free from the constant drama and manipulation that had defined my family relationships for so many years. I had a home that belonged entirely to me, a job that provided both financial security and personal satisfaction, and relationships based on mutual respect rather than guilt and obligation. Amanda would eventually rebuild her life on a foundation of genuine accomplishment rather than fraud and manipulation. And that process would make her stronger and more resilient than she'd ever been during her years of easy money and artificial success. Mom would learn to see her children as the complex, flawed adults we actually were, rather than the idealized versions she'd created in her mind. And I would continue building the kind of life that reflected my actual values and priorities rather than constantly reacting to other people's crises and demands. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who were taking advantage of your generosity? The decision to say no to people we love can be incredibly painful. But sometimes it's the only way to break destructive patterns and create space for genuine healing and growth. I'd love to hear about your experiences with family financial conflicts and how you've handled situations where love and money created impossible choices. If this story resonated with your own experiences with family drama or financial manipulation, please give it a like and share it with someone who might benefit from hearing about the importance of setting healthy boundaries. Subscribe to hear more stories about overcoming family conflicts and building authentic relationships based on mutual respect rather than guilt and obligation. Thanks for listening to my story, and I hope it helps you navigate your own challenging family dynamics with wisdom and courage.